All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Talk Like That podcast. And I am very excited today to be able to tell you that today I am going to be interviewing an amazing Canadian comedy award winner, uh, best breakout artist, multiple CCA award nominee. Interviewing and I just realized that now I'm hearing myself. This is live. It's a live show, people. I'm hearing myself now on feedback. I need to turn down the volume, or I'm going to drive myself crazy with my own voice. I'm hearing myself. It's amazing. This is live. I love this. Live show, people. I'm hearing that. Now you'll see. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to drive myself crazy. I got two computers going. Here we go. Shut down. I can't because I can't remember how to turn down the volume on an iMac. So I'm just gonna shut. If in doubt, shut it down. That's my slogan. So anyway, as I was saying, Ken Hall is an actor who is also known as the extraterrestrial alter ego Jeff the Grey on TBS's hit show People of Earth. He's also known as Derek Ferdinand in Murdoch Mysteries, and he turns up as Herb and the Mocap for Pogo in the Umbrella Academy. He is also an award-winning director, actor, and writer, and is one half of the critically acclaimed comedic duo Two Men, No Show. So I'm very happy to welcome to TLT Ken Hall.
Hello. Hey, Mark. How are you? Yay.
I'm pretty good, except that I just realized that my light source
I know.
is fed.
Your computer.
It's fed by the computer I've just turned off. So I'm going to turn it back on again, and by the time it's loaded up, I'll have some light going on.
Great. So I can increase my light, and maybe we can sort of split the difference.
Yeah, that's right. Share. We'll share some light.
I'll try and send my lights.
Man, this is professional. This is completely professional outfit going on.
I don't know. Is it, Mark? I don't know.
Well, I set up that light at just the right angle so that I would get these kind of spooky kind of panda shadows going on.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, he's going into a character. This is very like the ambience, very mysterious. Exactly. You know,
that's it. It's kind of like a Freaky Friday sort of just thing, even though it's
like
Thursday.
Shadow. Yeah. But I love the delay. That was a nice touch. That allowed me to finish my avocado and toast. So
right. That's like one thing I forgot to announce you as was a Toronto hipster. Because that's not on your IMDb profile. It doesn't say anything about you being an avocado toast lover.
I know. I got to work on my branding. Yeah, I know. That should lead. That really... CCA, Canadian Comedy Award, hipster, avocado and toast enthusiast. That's
exactly.
So, and I'm happy. Like I love avocado and toast. It's a simple.
I'm sure I've had it before. I mean, if there we go. Got the lights back on again. Wow. So I'm sure I've had it because, otherwise, if I say I haven't, then I'll get kicked out of Toronto. I think that is one of the prerequisites for being able to live within the GTA. So sure, I think my wife has probably made it for me. Oh God, I'm back again. Like I'm going to close it. Jesus Christ. I forgot the iMac. It just opens everything up automatically.
I love it. No, you're doing a great bit. This is so awesome, Mark. You're like...
this is what you call. This is the improv comedy show. Which I understand you lead an improv class, right?
Yeah, but you're doing it so much better than me. This is great.
See, I work best when I'm completely unprepared. That's the thing. Working under pressure.
You're in your element right now.
You never got a script. It's a pain in the ass. You got to learn your lines.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Yeah. So anyway, Ken, we're here to talk about you because you're the star here, and So I figured that, I mean, as we were talking a little bit about, I touched on improv. I mentioned it. So I thought, tell me a little bit about the improv stuff that you do, because we don't really see that's not stuff that makes it to the screen. We'll come to your screen stuff in a little bit. So tell me a little bit more about the improv stuff you do.
Yeah, well, the improv stuff that I tend to do currently is all digital now. It's really Zoom or SteamYard and such. But my improv generally consisted of being in front of a live audience on a stage. But that being said, like the film and TV stuff that I do as well, there's often elements of improv within that to add on top of the writing and such. But for me, it's just been a joy to find improv in my life of really embracing a silly side of myself, and to share that with other people and have that affirmed with other people as well. There is not enough time in the day to talk about how the benefits of doing improv and all the cathartic and healing properties of it, and just the feel good properties. Like it is such a tremendous tool for personal growth and as well for entertainment, to help people feel more comfortable in their own skin, to play with collaboration, to play with spontaneity, creativity, to say yes with other people's ideas, to find surprise where nothing existed before, and you're creating something in tandem with an audience. So for me, that's something that has really changed my life in a very, very profound way. I wouldn't be doing film and TV if it wasn't for improv. And the style of improv that I traditionally feel very comfortable in is a more sort of absurd style of improvisation. My best friend and comedy partner, Isaac Hessler, of the other half of Two Men No Show, our brand has always been very audience centric, meaning like we want to give what the audience wants, but we want to also like pursue like we don't want to worry so much about a story. We just want to really pursue play and have a lot of fun in that process. And rather pretending that there's a wall there, or the fourth wall in theater, it's like, well, we can see an audience and we can see when you're not laughing. So why don't we just call that out and invite them in? Let's find ways that we can really generate more play, not just between ourselves, but like to have it as very like a communal experience. And that's our thing, is like we want to have people leave that show and be like, I don't know what I just saw, but I had an experience, and I'm going to remember that. I mean, it's real visceral kind of experience, because we will play with the audience. We'll go into the audience. We'll bring the audience up on stage. We will bring them into the play that we do. So that's really the kind of brand that we've been tagged with, this idea of clown prov over the last several years. But improv in general is just so much fun and freeing. I've actually spoken to like skydivers who are like, yeah, it's kind of like stepping into an improv scene. It's kind of like stepping out of a plane.
Wow.
And hopefully you got a parachute. And
right.
But it's there's a freedom within that. You mentioned it earlier of like, oh, we don't have a script. And for some people that can be a scary thing of like, well, I don't know what are we going to do? What's it going to look like? But for me, there's actually more freedom in creating the script as you go, because I don't have to worry about, am I doing it right so much? I'm just like, oh, this is it. So there's less time to be overly critical of my quote unquote performance, because I'm merely just coming from a place of discovery. When things are firing in all cylinders, there's really little time to be like, I wonder what I should say next. It's just like in the moment, do it. Just as we're doing, as things are like tech is falling or echoing, or lights are going off and such. So it's a great skill to just to bring you to the moment and to be like, this is the moment. And this
right. Yeah, and I understand that, like you said, it really does help with acting as well, because like you become a little bit more prepared for the unexpected. So, for example, rather than just relying on other people to be able to do their part and remember their lines, you're really putting a lot of, anyway, as an actor, especially on stage, especially, but you're always putting a lot of trust in your fellow actors. But of course, they're human. So sometimes there are going to be mistakes, which, of course, when you're filming something, there's other takes, but on stage, you're on your own and you've got to find your way. So
Yeah.
I guess having that improv background is a kind of gives you, I guess, would give you an extra confidence to be able to say, I got this, whatever goes on.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I love this idea of like quote unquote making mistakes, and we often live our lives afraid of making mistakes. But within improv, particularly, and within acting, those mistakes can have the most benefit, of the most joy, the surprises. That's often where the comedy comes from within improv scenes. And I think the real savvy players recognize that these quote unquote things that are like, oops, oh, I mispronounced a word or something like that. Where it's like, great, that's the scene. That's the thing that we can like maximize and heighten and explore. But the more that you can get comfortable of making mistakes in front of other people, especially in a spontaneous way, and survive it, I think that becomes more of your default. And what I discovered learning improv, I've been doing improv for 16 plus years now, of saying yes in scenes, embracing this idea of failing and accepting it, allows me to be comfortable making mistakes, more comfortable making mistakes and such in my outside life. So the rules of improv, I find, are like, wow, these are kind of good rules to live life by. Instead of hiding your mistakes, what happens if you own them? And there's something quite cathartic and freeing from that place. And so when it translates to whether it be acting on a theater stage or in front of a camera, again, there can be like, wow, you had to be there. That was a real cool organic moment that's not written in the script. We've got a great template to go on, but there's just an abundance of things that can happen if we bring ourselves and allow ourselves to be more in the moment, playing in response to what our scene partner's doing. And that just, I mean, someone I can imagine as a writer be like, holy smokes, you didn't even think that was, we've got the writing, which is already great, but we can add on to that and discover even more things.
Yeah, and sort of flesh it out and add some tones in there and looks and moves that aren't even scripted to make it more of a three-dimensional thing, right?
Yeah.
So
and unique to that person, unique to that of like, it's not a canned thing of like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna say this and raise my eyebrow like this. That's gotta be so exhausting, but like to take the pressure off, like just stepping in and being like, whatever you're going to give me, I'm going to support. And we're going to build this scene and we're going to collaborate together. But I don't know what you're going to give me in that sense, And again, that keeps it really fresh. Even when you have scripted things, yes, I know there's lines that we have to hit, but how you deliver it every time can be different. And we can find and discover stuff in that.
Wow, awesome. I've got to check out some improv. I seriously was going to go and try out some improv stuff, like Improv 101 for beginners type thing. But and then the whole freaking COVID thing hit, and it's like, So,
but you can still do it though. There's improv all over the world happening. You can learn anywhere. And granted,
I guess it could now, like the
yes, you totally can. Sure, I taught improv. Tons of improv is happening. It's a bit different than the in-person experience, but you can absolutely train during this time. You can still learn all the mechanics of how to do a good improv scene, and get that feeling of like every single Zoom show that I do or a SteamYard show. There's always a bit of nerves within that. It still matters to me, right? Yeah. And there's still like, I don't know how it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like it gives you the focus. Yeah. So it's like
element of,
even though I'm not physically in the same room and there's not a physical audience in front of me, there, it's still that same internal experience that I have of excitement, a bit of nerves, uncertainty, a lot of joy, a lot of kind of eager, like it's all there. So absolutely, Mark, jump in to an improv anywhere in the world.
Right. So I've got a few clips lined up, and hopefully, if the tech holds out, then we'll be able to see them and hear them. So I figured, like, I'd play this first one, and then you tell me a little bit more about, I don't know, maybe about the scene and about like the bigger picture kind of thing.
Sure.
So this first one is from you in Murdoch Mysteries.
Oh, great.
So that was you playing Mr. Ferdinand.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about Mr. Ferdinand and his role within Murdoch Mysteries, because he's a recurring character, right?
Yes, he Yes, he was. A bit of a spoiler, but he was.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought him back. We're very lucky that they brought him back this year as well. So the clip that you played was from last season. So that was season 13. And so
He
they brought
comes
him back
back.
in season 14,
Yeah.
which was lovely. So yeah, Derek Ferdinand is such a lovely character to play. So the Murdoch Mystery stuff was a really wonderful experience because for me, the costumes, like I don't know if I don't think I've ever uh, played such a period piece before. I'm thinking of a short film I did many years ago where I was a bartender, maybe around that kind of era. No, that was probably war actually. But like, so Murdoch is even before that. I love the costumes. I love that kind of world to play in, and to play someone like Derek, who's a very curmudgeon-y kind of like just a real hard guy to to be around. I love that kind of that type of character because it's that sort of rigidity that he has and that curmudgeonness is very opposite to I think how I generally am in my day-to-day life and such. So it's really fun to slip into a different kind of skin in a sense to embody, and and that was a really fun. I haven't seen that clip in quite a while, so it was fun to see get to play off those guys and Daniel Maslany and such. So yeah, this past year they brought Derek back. Where unfortunately he gets murdered. So bit of a spoiler there. But you got to go. You got to go in style, and and it was a great. I mean, that whole experience was just amazing. We shot it back in September up in a place called Innisfil, which is close to Barrie, Ontario. It's about maybe an hour's away from Toronto, north of Toronto. So I got to to be in the woods, in the forest, for about a week, and that was quite, or at least for a few days and such. So, yeah, I love playing characters that are kind of assholes, and that berate people, and that have maybe inflated egos or inflated sense of worth, and again the costumes, the mustache. Whew, so good.
So
it's a good look for me, I swear. Like, my Facebook profile is my picture is Derek Ferdinand, I think.
yeah, I noticed, and I saw the post you put up in on Facebook as well, and you said, "Oh, up in the countryside for a change," and so that must be nice to get some fresh air up there.
It was, yeah. I mean, again, it's been such a tough year for everyone, really, and for film and TV, for it to actually to still be able to be in production, to still be able to make TV is amazing. There's a lot of safety protocols that we have to follow because there's just so many people involved in the production of making a show. But I was very, yeah, just very grateful to be able to get to do that, to still be able to work, to get to do what I love doing, and to get out of the city as well. I love traveling, and I spent a lot of time in my apartment with my cat, and
traveling to Barrie, I guess, is not on many people's lists, I'm guessing.
I guess no, I don't know. I guess not. It's
but you know what? At the moment, traveling anywhere is traveling.
Yeah. I barely leave my house these days, so it's to see the sun. It's like, wow, that's.
I know. Well, it's a beautiful day today here in Toronto, right? I mean, it's sunny and good to go out for a walk.
Sure.
And so in Murdoch Mysteries, obviously the costume you wear is it's a early 20th century gentleman. You've got your fob watch, whatever, your jacket, and all of that, and like you said, the mustache, right, as well. Whereas compared to let's say the alien you play as Jeff the Grey, that's a little bit different.
It is.
So maybe I should play a clip from that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So here you are as and this is just a short promo of you as Jeff the Grey. So here we go. Let's see. On this one. Yep.
Hello, Earth. Your time as a free planet is coming to an end. What are you doing? Chair racing. How do you feel like everybody can see you? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Jeff. Sorry doesn't cut it. Look like a bunch of morons. Earthlings. Bow down.
So that was you as Jeff the Grey in People of Earth, which is a fantastic show. Like, I remember when I invited you to come and talk on talk like that, I looked at your your IMDb profile and saw that you're in People of Earth. And first of all, I didn't twig. And then when I did a little bit more research, and then I watched the first episode and figured, I've seen this before. So I didn't recognize the name. I just remember watching the show because, like, you know how it is. You watch like maybe a couple of episodes and then totally forget. And then I thought, oh my God, this show was amazing. It was so freaking funny. And the whole thing about, it's all about people being abducted by aliens and nobody believing them and thinking they're weirdos. And like the show is basically based around a guy who is he's a journalist for a paper, and he gets given this job to go and interview them, and he's like, oh, who are these freaking weirdos? Little does he know he's about to become well, they don't say abductee on the show, they use a different term, but
experiencer. Yes,
an experiencer. Exactly. And it all goes off from there. And of course you play one of the aliens, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was the biggest thing that I'd done up until that part. I was a series regular, and to be with people like Wyatt Cenac and like Ana Gasteyer and like just a heavyweight Oscar Nunez and Greg Daniels, like it was quite a jump from things that I'd done in the past. And I even remember like getting the script for the audition, for the first audition. It was, at that time, it was just a pilot episode called The Group. And I read the script. I'm like, this is really funny. And then I got to do it, and very grateful to have that kind of experience and to play such a great kind of character. So it's kind of funny because like Derek, Ferdinand, and Jeff, they would get along quite swimmingly, I think, like Jeff was always again like put upon, like bigger egos kind of thing and such. But there was a lot of heart, not only to Jeff, but for the entire show. It was a really beautifully quirky and a bit different, I think, than other shows. But it's just an amazing experience. Just so many cool things happen, and getting to play with awesome people like Bjorn and Drew, who play the other aliens, kind of this sort of a Three Stooges-ish kind of vibe. It was just it was great. I got to meet a ton of fans and have experiences of like going on Conan or going down to San Diego Comic-Con, for example, and again, like being on the receiving end of like people, hearing from people of how a show, 22-minute show or however long it is for, the half-hour slot, but how it resonates with people, how we consume media and what, the effect of that it has. It's quite profound, I think, and I love this idea of doing work that matters and that it means something to people. And it's easy to think of like an improv show as like, oh, that's it, and it's done. But I feel like there's an effect on it. I've had so many conversations with people where they're like, we still talk about that show. Remember when you said this? And I'm like, I did that. It sounds like something I would say or do, but but it's in a sense, it's like it kind of matters more for the audience, that you leave a lasting impact, and we can, I think, learn about ourselves and about the world, and at the same time have entertainment. And for me, I'm like, that feels good. That's a good fit for me. My background was in career counseling and social work before I got into doing full-time acting. Wow. So I was like, it's not the it's tough because they don't have answers to very systemic issues of poverty and mental health and addictions and racism and everything. And but for me to entertain, to laugh, to give someone a laugh, I just think it's just one of the best feelings.
Yeah. So you're you're helping. You're being a social worker in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're entertaining, and that's it. Taking one of the best stress relievers is laughter. So that's what you're giving, and that's awesome. So kind of doing it in a different way.
Now, and it helps me as well. It's a reciprocal thing. It's a mutual it's a mutual kind of pairing, I think.
I would love to see some of the outtakes from that show, though. As Jeff the Grey, because it's such a great character as well, and it's hilarious. But and I saw like you mentioned the interview with Conan. I watched that when I was doing a little. Believe it or not, I did do some prep. I did a bit of homework.
Sure. I'm just working on the leads.
I saw that interview, and it was great. Like I learned a lot about all the actors that were in the show, and the bit with Conan that you had when you were talking to him, they talked about the makeup, the prosthetics that you were wearing, and said that I figured it kind of looked like a butt, right? Kind of looked like a like a huge bottom, and they said it kind of looked like a ball bag, like a huge pair of testicles, where it's like because the hair, there's like little hairs on there, and how long did it take to be put into all of that makeup and prosthetics?
Surprisingly not that long. It's about 2 hours from start to finish. Which in the world of prosthetics isn't really that long, all things considered. When I first started out doing acting 10 plus years ago, I started out on shows like Freak Encounters or Scare Tactics, playing monsters quite often. And so those builds in particular were often like 5-hour builds. So to become like a giant rat, a human rat, they're like, there's the application of the prosthetic, and then they add on to it. And then there's the painting, the gluing, all that kind of stuff. So not to say that 2 hours is not a substantial amount of time, but comparatively, I'm glad that I had that experience of already doing prosthetics. So I'm comfortable with the process, and again, like 2 hours, I can meditate. I can just chat. It's sometimes a nice way to start your day. The more challenging thing was to be in the prosthetic for the entire day. And when I say the entire day, I mean like sometimes, generally always like 12-hour to 16-hour days. So you're entombed, encased in this very hot prosthetic where the nostrils for Jeff were actually above my nostrils, so I couldn't breathe through my nose. So we found a way to through my eye sockets, there'd be like a little gap in like the sort of like a little a little alleyway kind of thing where I could take in some air, and it was covering my ears, so I couldn't really hear. And when the eyes go in between like every take or so, or they fog up really quick. So I can't see, hear, or really breathe. So it's a bit
like so really that prepared you for the COVID era.
Sure. Yeah.
Wearing a mask
in training. Yeah. Quite comfortable. Quite comfortable. I don't have to wear it over my ears, so it's actually, I can hear.
Also, how do you do research for a character who is actually an alien?
Yeah, great question. Well, I don't remember doing a lot of research, to be honest. It was more of like, because my auditions, I already given the script that I had and the choices that I made and how it's written in the tone of the show. It's just like that's and the dealing with the costume as well. There was also prosthetic hands. So for Jeff,
yeah.
he had, like the 2 fingers and the thumbs. So I had to get fitted for like these gloves and such. And so there was a lot. You find the character. So I for me, just as I did on Umbrella Academy too, with discovering Pogo. Pogo was more. I did a lot more research with Pogo to physicalize, because Pogo is an actual chimpanzee, but with an alien, and just the sort of limitations of how I like it naturally looks a bit odd, So it's already very alien-esque, because I'm just trying to navigate the space and so yeah, there was a lot more. So I didn't really do a lot of research, and I've grown up watching a ton of TV and film and such. So Jeff is modeled after those very iconic, big gray-headed, dark-eyed aliens. So I feel like it all just kind of came together. Yeah, there was one point actually that they were going to give Jeff prosthetic teeth, like these sort of like frank, but it was so hard to wear them. It was just really impossible. So thankfully we didn't go with the teeth.
I'm glad. I mean, it doesn't need those kinds of dodgy teeth at all. Because you bring to the character. I mean, you make it very very human, in a way. And that's part of the comedy, is that basically Jeff the Grey is like a very human kind of annoyed guy. Like, he is constantly annoyed by the other 2 idiots that he's working with. And it's like, fuck, come on, guys. Like, trying to do a job here.
Yeah, it's very relatable. I think Greg Daniels, who is one of the executive producers of People of Earth, he was also the person who adapted The American Office. And so I think he, like those aliens, I think I think that tone on the ship is that they are very human-like in that sense. So grievances, egos, jealousy, falling in love, like very human-like things. So in actuality, they're not very different at all to the humans that they're plotting to overthrow. And I love that, even though wearing a lot of prosthetic, that humanity really comes through. And so that's challenging, I think, when your face is covered, because we glean so much from nonverbal behavior and body language and such. But again, it's funny, I watched like The Mandalorian, and I'm like, man, whew, like, it's so good. And there's literally a mask over there, but there's a lot of like the physicality, the score on top of it, and just how to shoot that is a real testament to what can be expressed. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, absolutely, like, Jeff was written, I think, to have a lot of heart. He's kind of like a bit very egocentric and shallow at times, but again, we are all of these things in our lives as well. And I think perhaps, even though he was very mean, there was a lot of stuff underneath that, a lot of things that he was hiding, a lot of things that he probably felt very uncomfortable with and such. And so he's very relatable. I'm just thinking of like how he was like middle management. He really does want, he wants accolades. He wants like acknowledgement, trophies. He wants to advance, like in the company, in the corporate kind of world. It's, again, like, these are very human qualities.
So, Ken, I just realized a couple of people have commented here.
Yeah, I saw that. I tried to read.
I think this is an ex-student of mine, Roberto, from many years ago, who says, "Love this guy." And another one is someone that probably. He said that you were his social worker in the Gold program. Says you're a great guy, and like you mentioned, you left it to pursue acting. And congratulations on your success.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I tried to write him in the chat. I don't know if I succeeded. I wrote someone in the chat, so. But thank you both, Roberto and Michael. I appreciate it. Absolutely.
So I've got another clip. Actually, I've got another couple of clips lined up because
cool.
I've saved what I feel is the best for last.
I'm curious.
And I absolutely adore this show, The Umbrella Academy. Fantastic show. It's I'm not done with the second season yet. Like I'm still making my way through there, but seen all of the first and a couple of episodes of the second one.
Great.
And I found this little clip on YouTube of you doing the mocap. So I'll just play this and then we'll talk a little bit about that and then we'll talk about Herb. So here we go. So this is the mocap stuff.
Probably would have been better with some wind. Does anyone wish to speak? Very well.
Just for anybody who's wondering, that's actually Ken on the right, not on the left.
Yeah.
For that alone, I shall forever be in his debt. He was my master and my friend, and I shall miss him very much. He leaves behind a
So that was Umbrella Academy, and so I understand you did the motion capture for the character of Pogo, like who you said earlier is kind of a chimpanzee, but
he is a chimpanzee.
Talking chimpanzee.
Yes, yeah, he definitely is a chimpanzee, but he like Hargreaves basically kind of altered him in a sense and made him become very human-like within that, but he's still chimpanzee, elderly chimpanzee too. So that was, again, in terms of like physicality and movement and such, like, okay, so I have to get down the physicality of being a chimpanzee, but also being a chimpanzee that's also partially kind of like human-like qualities, and at the same time an elderly chimpanzee with human qualities. So it was a cool track. I love that clip. It's just so cool to see how they all kind of came together. And it's Peter Jackson's group called Weta in New Zealand that do all the special effects, the CGI for that, and so they do a fantastic job of creating Pogo. And the person on the right there is Adam Godley, who is the voice and the face of Pogo. So basically, it's like me shoulders down, Adam head up kind of thing, as well as the voice. And so it's a real kind of cool collaboration to be like, I'm one moving part of creating Pogo. And that scene in particular was my first day. And it was shot
wow.
at. Yeah. We shot that. The end of January, here in Toronto, and it was raining all day and it was freezing, and I had a terrible case of bronchitis. I was on antibiotics, and I was like, can my first day be just get to know people? Like, no, it's that was actually one of the hardest shoots that I've ever done. Just because you're out in the rain, and they even had like artificial sprinklers to try and make the raindrops even more amazing looking, which again, I love how it turns out. It was amazing. It's those kind of moments where it's like, this is really hard. However, I'm going to get through this. And there's a real sense of accomplishment because my first 2 days were back to back, all outdoors like that. Working on that scene. It's quite a big scene because Luther and Diego, they have this big fight. And that was a real, again, kind of like, man, good job. I did it. Under some really tough circumstances. No actor wants to do anything sick. No one wants to do anything when you're sick, right? But to do that And again, like it's a real testament to how it's filmed, and well, for everyone actually, and I include myself in that. Like that was a tough shoot, and then I got better thankfully, but it was like, oh my gosh, I was like in my motion capture suit, I think I had like 3 or 4 sweaters on. I'm not usually that quite puffy, but I was like a few pairs of long johns, and I was like I was
Hey, look, January in Toronto.
brutal.
You don't need to say any more than that, really.
Yeah. And it literally rained all day, and so it's like it was not bad. I mean, that goes again. Like it goes in such a win column because I'm like, I can do it, and I've encountered other tough, challenging thing. This is the fun thing about being an actor is that you get to like navigate all this stuff, and I got to say too, like the supporting crew, like they do an amazing job of trying to keep you warm. So when it's like, okay, cut, people come out with jackets, people come out with umbrellas, coffee or something like to keep you warm.
You already had an umbrella.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. I had 2 umbrellas. It was great. I'm collecting umbrellas. They were coming out even just chatting with you, and it's like that warms you up. That kind of keeps you going. So it is very much a team effort. And I mean, like the majority of the time when you're working on a set, it's the crew that are out there the longest, like they're the ones that are really like in the elements and such. And so again, my hat to everyone involved in that, because it really is a team effort.
Cool. And a lot of that show was actually shot in Toronto, wasn't it? In the first season anyway. I don't know about the
first and second season. Oh, absolutely. Yep, second. It's all shot in Toronto. Yep. But like in and around Toronto. So there's Hamilton as well. At the end of season 2, we were shooting up in a farmhouse in Pickering as well. So it is Toronto based, but there's and even actually in season 2 they went down to Dallas, Texas, because season 2 takes place in Dallas, Texas, in the 1960s, and so they actually got to go down there and do some stuff, cool. Shoot some stuff. Yeah.
Well, there was I should mention like my oldest daughter, she's a big fan of the show as well. And I remember in season 1, there's a scene where Robert Sheehan, and Robert Sheehan is freaking awesome. I'm a huge fan of that guy, because I remember seeing him in Misfits. I don't know if you ever saw Misfits, but what an amazing character in that show. Yeah. So anyway, Robert Sheehan does the scene, and it's like he's on a bus. And and my daughter Elle, she sat there going, "There's something not right with this. The number 40, it's going," because she's looking at the background. And it's like it goes past such and such a store, and then it's going back the other way, and then back again. So obviously they've shot it like thinking, well, no one's gonna know. But then they're going, that store. They're going in different directions on the same bus.
Maybe that store is a chain, though. Maybe it's a chain. Maybe it's kind of they have multiple stores along that street.
Well, not in the junction. I mean, come on.
Right.
You guys been there. Down here in the junction, no chain store. Sorry, except there's a Starbucks, and there's a not Coffee Time, Tim Hortons, of course. But it's like it kind of, you can tell. And so there's that scene where he gets off the bus and he starts throwing. There's like the time machine thing, and he's throwing that around. I'm like, I know where that is. I used to live just down the road from there. So that was a pretty awesome moment.
It's so cool to see landmarks that you're like, oh, I know this place. Yeah. Cool.
And I'm so glad I wasn't there. Otherwise, I'd be like, can I have a selfie taken with you? That's such a great show. And I've got another clip of you as Herb. Cool. So I'm just going to play that little bit there, and then we'll maybe you can talk about Herb as well, because I understand that he's got a different, like I said, no spoilers. I haven't seen all of season 2 yet, but I understand that Herb has kind of a new role in the second season. Mm-hmm. So this is where Diego meets Herb for the first time. And here we go. This is okay.
It's very shiny. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Hargreaves.
You know me?
Everybody knows you. I mean, you're number 2. You're a legend.
Really?
Mr. Hargreaves, you can't be in here.
Is that any way to talk to a legend?
That's awesome.
So Herb features a little bit more because you don't see much of him, and like in the first show, you see him behind a typewriter a few times, and then he comes before in the second season.
Yeah, Herb was only in one episode in season 6, and just for a little tiny bit. But I think people really enjoyed the dynamic that Herb had with the handler, played by Kay Walsh, and it was funny. And so they were like, well, maybe let's bring him back. And yeah, Herb.
See, that just goes to show how freaking awesome you are, Ken. I mean, if it was somebody else, it'd be like, yeah, Herb is in and blah, blah. But because you created that comedy tension happening, it's like, no, this guy's awesome. Bring him back.
Yeah, and I the real benefit. Well, I appreciate that, but the real benefit of playing Pogo for 6 months. And even though it's not my voice, it's Adam Godley. As I was saying, it's like, I still go to set really prepared. And I never, because we were literally creating the show, I'm like, I don't have Adam's voice in my, I have to believe I'm this character and all of this character as well. So for me, I'm like, all of my choices. So I'm showing up consistently and doing good work. And again, it's a love. I mean, it is such a, in my years, I will think back to this and be like, it was such an amazing time to have something of like, great, I'm doing the body of Pogo, wonderful, and then be like, hey, about halfway in, they're like, hey, do you want to play a person? Like, we got a small role, and I'm like, 100%, of course, And then from that, and again, that's what I'm thinking, like this idea of like playing to the best of your ability. I do that when I'm on an improv stage. Like I do really want to do well, and I want to give it my all. I want to break a sweat, but I want to have fun. I want to really pursue that. And so again, I'm just like, I'm really touched and really, very honored that people are like, here's an opportunity then, and you did a good job, and we see that. And that's what I think of, like, doing good work that's recognized. Not always, but it's like, it's a really nice thing. And again, what they've done for Herb, of the arc, the character arc that they've given, because Herb is a lot more featured in season 2. And again, I'm very blessed that I get to do what I'm very comfortable doing, which is comedy. And Herb both things actually, comedy and heart, I feel in, because like even within Herb, there is like a very Jeff-like heart, like there is the humanity. And Herb, I can relate to a lot of Herb of like feeling low status, feeling insecure, wanting to do a good job. There's a lot of Ken that goes into Herb as well. And the clowning, the physicality, the physical comedy, I should say, the timing of it is for me, it's very natural. Like it is, I know Herb. I can play this character. I know him quite intuitively, I feel. And so, I'm very blessed that they gave Herb a vehicle to explore more and to support other, like, Kate's characters, the handler, and to have that wonderful cat and mouse feeling of like, oh gosh, like she could end my life at any moment, like she could crush me.
Oh yeah, she's pretty. I mean, she is the epitome of evil. Like,
yeah, totally.
So scary and sexy at the same time, and amazing.
It's very kind of like a Walt Disney villain. Is like so much status, so much power, and poise and everything, and I'm just like again, like I'm kind of cowering in the corner, but at the same time, I'm like kind of finding a bit of my voice, finding kind of like my backbone, finding that I do have an assertiveness, and if you believe, in something, that you can say that you can stand up to power. You can, there's a wonderful message, like, an underdog spirit, a subversiveness to challenge authority to challenge, the status quo in essence. So I can relate a lot to those kind of principles. So it's because I always grew up feeling insignificant and feeling like I didn't fit in this kind of world. And then again, discovering improv and such, finding out that there is a place for me, and so I think that's an important message.
Awesome. And a couple of people have said, "Oh, I've watched People of Earth and it's hilarious." And then Michael, your old buddy, said he hasn't, but he's going to see if it's on Netflix. Now, I know that People of Earth is not on Netflix, as far as I know. It was a TBS show, and I don't think
it's on iTunes. Netflix. Yeah, it's on iTunes.
It's on iTunes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's on iTunes, and I know for sure that. Oh my God, it's gone out of my head now. What were we just talking about?
The
Umbrella Academy. Oh my God. When you get into your 50s, this is what happens, right? So, the Umbrella Academy is on Netflix.
It is.
Guys, like if you have not seen the Umbrella Academy, it's on Netflix. It's worth getting Netflix for just to see the show. It's so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, is there anything that you're working in at the moment that you can mention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that I'm doing actually is over the summer, a radio station based in Toronto called Voices for Ability reached out to me, and it's a radio station for people with disabilities. And so they were looking to I guess update and reformat their programming. So they're like, we want to have a show about comedy and disability. And I know the owner of the station, Melanie Tadeo, from public speaking, the realm of that. I've been sort of doing a little bit of that over the last couple of years and really enjoying that. And so they offered me a show. And so I'm like, okay, let's do it. I'd like to bridge the gap, or kind of bring a bit more awareness and opportunity. I think for people.
Where can we see this show?
It's going to be on Voices for Ability Radio. So it's a radio show, and I've recorded 5 episodes so far. I don't have an actual release date yet. We're pre-recording them. The show is going to be every 2 weeks. When it's going to be released, it's going to be on Thursdays, I think at 9 Eastern Standard Time. But I'm still kind of creating that and again starting a bunch of interviews and things like that. But that's really where I've been putting a lot of my energy over the last couple of months and such. So it's an exciting venture to get out there and to meet other comedians and people affiliated with comedy, in addition to talking to people with disabilities, because that world of comedy and disability is still somewhat removed. And as I was saying earlier, we see and consume media and film and TV, but we don't really see a lot of physical diversity, for example, and such. And so again, when season 2 of Umbrella Academy came out, where I'm not just playing the body of Pogo, I'm actually a person that on such a massive scale, because Netflix is everywhere. And so people literally all over the world are watching and seeing. And again, that's such a testament to the power of that show in particular, to really show this is life, this is the world that we live in, differences and such. And I think that people are exposed to that these differences aren't so different. It's not different. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we're all part of this, right? And so when season 2 came out, people were reaching out to be like, I've never seen anyone like you on TV before. I'm 4'7", I have major scoliosis, and so it's quite nice to. I was talking with one person, and we started exchanging our X-rays, because this person in Wales, she also has scoliosis, and so we just got chatting. And I'm like, I'd love to see your X-ray. And so we've been sharing X-rays. And but I mean, that's one of those things. I mean, getting to meet amazing people, but hopefully these kind of conversations, it can make a difference, so that people. The reason you don't see a lot of people, perhaps, with disabilities in comedy is that again, maybe the training centers or where people can learn about comedy could be more accessible. There could perhaps be more of an outreach to, people with different accessibility needs and such. And then,
listen, I mean, the whole accessibility thing that's content for an entire series of podcasts. I mean, you, like me, you live in Toronto, and as an able-bodied person, even I recognize that, like, you get on the TTC, okay, part of the system is that there's like an arranged pickup, there are buses that people that are accessible, but if you want to go around on TTC, if you're a person who uses a wheelchair to get around, it's like, there are only certain stations that you can actually go to, and you're lucky if an elevator actually works. You're lucky. And let's say you're a person who is using a wheelchair and needs to use a washroom. Good luck.
I mean, exactly. Like, I think how people have initially designed things is like it can create barriers where there may not needed to have been a barrier in the first place. And so I think it makes good business sense to think about that and to look at accessibility and such in ease of just simply accessing a bathroom, for example, and or accessing an elevator. So with I think all of this is just like, let's start to have more conversations and put that a little bit more on the forefront, I think, and to increase awareness within that too. So I think it's important work.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on Talk Like That. It's such an honor to have you here. Keep in touch. And I wish you all the best with your show. And I look forward to seeing the rest of season 2 of the Umbrella Academy.
Hey, honestly, it's so good. It is so good.
And B, seeing you in more stuff.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who is watching.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, Roberto.